Take a good look at that mountain. That is Death Mountain, home of the Gorons. They hold the spiritual stone of fire. Throughout the entire history of Hyrule, Gorons are one of the only races that have existed as consistently as the Hylians themselves. They survive by eating rocks, they grow bomb flowers as a special crop, and enjoy a life of peace in their mountain homes. The Gorons have appeared in so many games throughout the franchise, but today we're only going to focus on the Gorons as they appear in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Unlike the Kokiri discussed in the previous video, the Gorons didn't have any progenitor race or really anything at all curious about their origins. As long as Hyrule has been around, the Gorons have remained allied with the forces of good by fighting alongside the goddess Hylia, or in the era of the Hero of Time when they are allied with the royal family of Hyrule. If they've been around practically forever, then the question begs to be asked, why did they settle on Death Mountain? Well, the answer to that question is pretty simple. We Gorons live on a diet of rocks, and the most delicious and nutritious rocks around are found in the Dodongo's Cavern. At some point, generations before the events of Ocarina of Time, the Goron people settled in Death Mountain because the rocks found in Dodongo's Cavern, for whatever reason, are made up of minerals that the Gorons find absolutely delectable. They also found that the cavern and other caves around Death Mountain were ideal for growing their special crops, the bomb flowers. As for who discovered Dodongo's Cavern and found that it was a great place to eat and grow their crops, I have a little theory. In Skyward Sword, we meet a Goron traveler named Gorko. You'll meet him often throughout your adventure on the surface, but the last time you run into him is when you're traveling through the Elden region to reach the Fire Sanctuary. I think it's pretty clear that Elden Volcano is what would one day become known as Death Mountain, as it's the only volcano on the entire surface and inhabits the Elden region of Hyrule. Gorko seemed very excited to have finally reached the Fire Sanctuary with Link and stayed outside while Link cleared the dungeon within. It seems pretty obvious to me that Gorko, the first Goron to set foot on Elden Volcano, took a liking to it, and eventually invited his assistant Golo to join him on the mountain to feast on the delicious rocks in the caves. In time, Dodongo's Cavern would have been discovered. Eventually, the other species living around the volcano left the place while the Gorons immigrated and settled in. Now, the history that we do know for a fact is that generations before the era of the Hero of Time, the Gorons fell victim to the dragon Volvagia. Some sources say that the dragon was the ancient spirit of fire akin to the Deku Tree over the forest and Jabu Jabu over water, but was notably malicious compared to those two. Perhaps the dragon was displeased with the Gorons for displacing the other species in their gluttonous search for rocks, or perhaps the dragon just enjoyed the taste of Gorons. We'll never know. The Gorons would not have been accustomed to being prey, as there aren't a whole lot of things in Hyrule that could digest rocks such as they, but Volvagia treated the Gorons the way they treat a rock sirloin. At some point, a Goron hero arose with a legendary megaton hammer. We know the Gorons have some of the greatest weaponsmiths in the world living around their mountain home, so I would wager that not only was the weapon wielded by a mighty Goron, but likely was created by a Goron as well. Using the Megaton Hammer, the Goron hero defeated Volvagia and saved the Goron people from an acidic demise. We're not sure when, but either before or after the defeat of Volvagia, the Fire Temple was built into the depths of the mountain. It was in there that the Gorons placed their treasure, the Megaton Hammer, to await a new hero with the strength to wield it should there ever come a need again. With peace restored, the Gorons were free to settle into their new mountain home without any further interruption. Over the years, they would build deeper into the mountain until Goron City was alive with fire and life. Unlike the Gorons we would meet in the era of the Wilds, the Gorons of this era would often not settle into their own homes, but would rather curl up wherever they felt like it and call it their space. So now that we know where they came from, we can go into more detail about everything we really know about the Gorons as they appear in Ocarina of Time. First, I'll start with their gender.
It's true you don't see many dwarf women, and in fact, they are so alike in voice and appearance that they're often mistaken for dwarf men. It's the beards. And this in turn has given rise to the belief that there are no dwarf women, and that dwarfs just spring out of holes in the ground. Which is, of course, ridiculous.
Jokes aside, in 1999, there was a magazine called The 64 Dream that published its 31st issue with a Q&A section interviewing some of the developers who worked on Ocarina of Time. Toru Osawa, the script director of Ocarina of Time, was asked, "Are there any women in the Goron tribe?" His answer, There definitely are, but it's so difficult to tell them apart, especially because everyone also addresses themselves as Ora. So my Lord of the Rings quote from earlier, at least in the context of Ocarina of Time's Gorons, is more than just a little joke. It appears that all Gorons address themselves with the Japanese masculine personal pronoun of Ora, which would be the same as saying I in English. However, Ora is more of a country bumpkin version of the more proper Ore, which is a strongly masculine Japanese personal pronoun. Another famous user of the Ora pronoun in fiction would be none other than Goku himself. And per the quote from Osawa before, all Gorons, whether male or female, use this identifier. This also extends to the use of the word kyōdai to refer to each other, which in Japanese generally refers to brothers, though it can be used to refer to only brothers, both male and female siblings, but not usually just sisters. But they call every other Goron and friend to the Gorons kyōdai, much the same as they call themselves Ora. And like Osawa said, this has made it all very confusing as to which gender of Goron you are actually speaking to. For all we know, even the big Goron could be female. The Gorons also have close family ties to their actual blood-related family. But before I delve into that, I need to address the elephant in the room. Gorons and most other Hyrulean races are featured with much more detail in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom than in any other game. I'm only focusing on what we know about the Gorons based on in-game text from Ocarina of Time and interviews with developers from around the same time. I will address that in Tears of the Kingdom, there is a Goron who mentions, Gorons are born of the land, you see. Vulcan and I were born from the same place, so you could say we're rock brothers. That was said by Trey in Tears of the Kingdom. This lore will not be considered in the context of this video, although you could still consider it canon because we never actually see any Goron babies in this game, or whatever. Gorons in Ocarina of Time, as mentioned before, share close family ties. Darunia himself has kept track of his own genealogy enough to know he is a descendant of the legendary Goron hero who slew Volvagia, and he also shares a close bond with his son, Link of the Gorons. The Smith brothers also refer to each other often and even model their swords identically, though one brother is clearly more talented than the other. Beyond blood ties, however, the Gorons see everyone in their tribe as family. As anyone who has spoken to a Goron will know, they refer to each other as brothers, and will even bestow that privilege on anyone who earns their trust, as Link did. There's even a step beyond that, as when Darunia is awakened as the Sage of the Fire Temple, he tells Link, "Don't forget, now you and I are true brothers." As such an overtly masculine species, the Gorons pride themselves on courage and strength. When Link comes of age, Darunia even tells him, "I want to have a man-to-man talk with you, but now's not the time." When Link defeats Volvagia and Darunia is awakened, he tells Link, "You turned out to be a real man, just as I thought you would." The strength of the Gorons is also what determines their leader, the strongest of the Gorons being the wild Darunia himself. As far as what the Gorons eat, we all know that they love to eat rocks. Physiologically, the Gorons are capable of eating any kind of rock, be it volcanic, gemstone, or gravel, but by the time we've reached the era of the Hero of Time, the Gorons have become such gourmets that they can't stand to eat rocks from anywhere besides Dodongo's cavern, which is where the most delicious and nutritious rocks can be found. This isn't uncommon among even us humans. We are more than capable of eating insects, for example, and it is common to do so if they come from the ocean, like shrimp or lobster, but it's rare for humans to eat other kinds of insects unless they grew up eating them. As for Goron intelligence, it seems to vary pretty wildly. On the one hand, we have Gorons who are willing to try and take a lick of the spiritual stone of fire when hungry enough, and then there's Gorons who craft unbreakable weapons that surpass the Master Sword in raw cutting power. As for their relationships with the other creatures of Death Mountain, Gorons are definitely the dominant species of the volcano, but they fear the Dodongos of the cavern, in particular King Dodongo. When the Megaton Hammer isn't handy, the Gorons use their fists and bomb flowers as weapons. As the Gorons themselves are built of rock and flesh, and some among them, like Darunia, have bulging muscles, it is no shock that a punch from a Goron would be as damaging as any other kind of weapon. All the more impressive it would be for a Goron like Darunia to wield the Megaton Hammer with relative ease. To store their bomb flowers for safe use, they also crafted bomb bags out of the stomachs of the Dodongos. They can also roll into rocky balls and move at rapid speeds, only to be stopped by bombs or crashes, with no apparent damage to the Gorons themselves when that happens. Biologically, their ages can be a bit confusing. We see that Link of the Gorons, son of Darunia, is the size of a full-grown Goron when he is only 7 years old. But even so, he acts like a child. We also don't have any ideas for how old the Gorons can get. And as far as their economy is concerned, the Gorons really only concern themselves with the delicious rocks from Dodongo's cavern and focus on growing and harvesting bomb flowers, which are of course used to mine more rocks, and they are also the primary ingredient in bombs throughout the kingdom. Now, we only have a few relevant Goron characters in Ocarina of Time. First, as he's been mentioned pretty frequently already, we have the wild Darunia, the big brother of the Goron tribe. If there was a penultimate Goron, he would be it. He is a strong, courageous Goron with the blood of the legendary Goron hero running through his veins. He's a very prideful man as well. When he was expecting the royal family to send a messenger to help the Gorons in their time of need, he was angry when he believed they only sent a little boy to help him. But also quick to swallow his pride, Darunia will soften when he has played music that he loves, or when someone proves themselves to him through action. We also have Darunia's son, Link of the Gorons, who plays a small role in the Fire Temple quest. He is much more timid than his father, but he's only 7 years old at the oldest and grew up in an era where his entire livelihood was threatened by a long-dead evil dragon who eats Gorons. He's a good-hearted kid who just wants to help, but he doesn't have the strength or courage necessary to do so on his own. Two other Goron characters would be Medigoron and his big brother Big Goron. Both of them are capable of crafting an incredible weapon that can deal more damage than the Master Sword. But important to note is that Medigoron lacks the foresight of his older brother and crafts only very short-lived weapons like the Giant's Knife, whereas Big Goron is capable of crafting the Big Goron Sword, which never breaks. Now we can move on to the history of the Gorons as it takes place in the era of the Hero of Time. After living in relative peace on Death Mountain for centuries, enjoying the delicious rocks found in Dodongo's cavern, the Gorons were met with a disaster. Ganondorf, in his lust for power and desire to steal the Goron's ruby, used his magic to cover the entrance to Dodongo's cavern with a massive boulder. The Gorons were at a loss for what to do. Centuries before, it likely would have been no problem. They could have just eaten the boulder and rocks around them. But as this Goron says, we Gorons live on a diet of rocks, and the most delicious and nutritious rocks are found in the Dodongo's cavern. But that seems like ancient history now. We've become such gourmets that we can't stand to eat rocks from anywhere else. I want to eat the top sirloin rocks from the Dodongo's cavern. There were also attempts from some of the Gorons to roll down the mountain with a bomb flower to destroy the entrance, but they could never get there on time. Eventually, the Gorons resigned to starving in their cavernous home, torches going out, and even the prize of their nation, the Goron's ruby, was taken from their sight. Darunia, the Goron chief, took the spiritual stone of fire in fear that another Goron with less impulse control would try to lick it or even eat it. He hid himself away behind a heavy stone door that would only open at Zelda's lullaby, the royal family's song. Eventually, the hero named Link would come to town to collect the Goron's ruby, but found that his entry into Darunia's quarters were blocked by the stone door. He played Zelda's lullaby and was promptly kicked out because Darunia was offended by the royal family's lack of respect for him, for sending just a little boy to help. Link departed to the Lost Woods which bordered Goron City, learned a song from his Kokiri friend Saria, and came back to put Darunia in a good mood after hearing rumors about him from the Gorons around the city. Like a switch, Darunia's depression was cured by the joyous sound of Saria's song, and he bestowed the Goron's bracelet on the young messenger and promised to give him Goron's ruby if he were to open the way to Dodongo's cavern and slay the monster within. Link obviously succeeds, and Darunia is so pleased with him that he names him an honorary brother of the Gorons and presents him with the spiritual stone of fire. Unfortunately, this peace for the Gorons is short-lived. After Link opens the way to Dodongo's cavern and the Gorons are able to gorge themselves on delicious rock sirloin again, Ganondorf obtains the Triforce of Power. In his conquest of Hyrule, the mighty Gorons refuse to serve him and submit to his will. So as a retaliation, Ganondorf uses his power to resurrect ancient foe of the Gorons, Volvagia. Unfortunately, it's been generations since anyone used the Megaton Hammer, so none of the Gorons could find it to fight back, not even Darunia. Ganondorf imprisoned the Gorons over the years within the Fire Temple, promising them that they would all be fed to Volvagia to satisfy its hunger. 7 years after Ganondorf's reign began, Darunia resolved to fight the dragon himself without the use of the Megaton Hammer. He left his only son behind, the Goron he named Link, after his old brother and friend. As fate would have it, Link of the Gorons would meet his namesake when Link returned to Goron City after his sojourn in the Sacred Realm. Link would be directed to the Fire Temple and gifted the Goron's tunic to allow him to survive the burning heat within. There, Link and Darunia would meet once again, but Darunia told him he would fight the dragon without the help of the Megaton Hammer to save his people. Link, hero as he always is, freed the Gorons imprisoned in the Fire Temple, found the Megaton Hammer, and defeated Volvagia. Upon the dragon's defeat, Darunia was awakened as the Sage of the Fire Temple, and Goron City found peace once again. Eventually, Link returned to Death Mountain seeking a more powerful weapon, which Big Goron would craft for him free of charge. Both weapons provided to Link by the Gorons, the Megaton Hammer and the Big Goron Sword, would prove invaluable in his journey ahead. The Gorons would celebrate their hearts out after Ganondorf's defeat, with both Dodongo's cavern open and free of terrible evil, and their ancient foe merely a skeleton in the depths of the Fire Temple, never to terrify them again. As for their future, with the splitting of the timeline, the Gorons would either go on to continue inhabiting their mountain home on Death Mountain, discovering a new island to call their home, or returning to Death Mountain after a centuries-long wandering in parts of Hyrule we've never seen. But more on that will be discussed in future videos. And with that, that's literally everything we know about the Gorons in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. If you liked this video, please consider liking and commenting on it, and sharing with your friends, and subscribing to my channel. I have a lot of these videos planned for the future for all of the games in the Legend of Zelda franchise, even the weird ones, and I also have plans for other series as well, like Mario or Fire Emblem. I would really like to continue just making these videos. And I also have a couple of different series that I have planned, different types of videos that I want to make. All of your likes, your comments, your subscriptions, all of your views, they motivate me to keep making these videos. And I would really love to just keep this whole thing going.